Hey everyone, welcome to Comics with Bueller. As always, I am Bueller. Today is another creator interview. Right now I have Daniel Kibblesmith on the show today. How you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. And we're here to talk about a new book that you're going to be working on. It's not really a new book. It's a relaunch of a book that came out a little bit ago that got a lot of fanfare. And now you have the handle. Are you a little nervous about being the Darkwing Duck guy?
No, not nervous at all. Just excited. Yeah. I mean, like, there's a lot of pressure because it's a character that so important to me and that I care about so much. But all of that is just completely dwarfed by how pumped I am to get to do this every month, and just how honored I am to be able to tell stories about these characters.
You must have been a fan. I asked this question before because I've interviewed almost all the people who worked on the Duck series. What
Mhm.
is the obsession with ducks, man? I mean, it's like Darkwing Duck,
Man,
Exotic Duck, Oregon Duck, you name it, man. People love these ducks. I mean,
that's
are
such
you
a great question. I mean, yeah, well, like I grew up, obviously, I watched, my first exposure to Disney duck, media was DuckTales in the United States, obviously. I was born in the early 80s and I loved DuckTales. I think the first movie I can remember being really excited about was the DuckTales movie that
Mhm.
came out with that sort of like Indiana Jones like homage, poster. So I loved that stuff. And then when the whole, Disney Afternoon series launched, I was like the right age to get completely obsessed with all of those shows, like especially Darkwing Duck, because that
Yeah.
had other stuff that I was starting to become curious about, like superheroes and, pulpy kind of atmosphere. And, around the same time as like Batman, the animated series. And uh, it was this perfect bridge for me to go from like little kid cartoons to big kid cartoons and start learning the vocabulary of superhero stories. Like, so the fact that he was a duck and that it was slapstick and it was comedy,
Yeah.
that gave like a kid my age like permission to get excited about it. To it gave us access to get into it. So I really don't know. I know that like duck comics have, like, there's been so many great Uncle Scrooge comics over the years, and like people have shown me like Carl Barks stuff and Don Rosa stuff, and I'm still getting into the world of this outside of my little corner of it. And I know they're really big in Europe. I know that in Duck Comics, it's like that's Batman and Superman over there. So there's just something about them. I think there's like the universality. It's like that Scott McCloud understanding comics thing of like when you create an icon, it's everybody.
Yeah.
So I think maybe by virtue of making them ducks instead of people, it's like, oh, I can see myself in this because it's just like a stand-in for for feelings that I have.
Nice. How did this project come to be? Did Dynamite approach you, or did you pitch them that, hey, you guys are redoing that, or they've already done a Darkwing Duck comic last year, and they kind of wrapped that up, and now
Mhm.
they're launching it again. Did you go to them, or were they like, man, we need Daniel. This is the guy.
I mean, I hope it was both, but the origin story is pretty funny. I saw that because I know Jeff Parker, and I saw
Mhm.
that the Negaduck project was coming out, and I was following the editor over at Dynamite, Nate Cosby, on Twitter, and I sent him a DM. I slid into his DMs, and I said, "Hey, I'm a huge Darkwing Duck fan. If there's ever like a one shot or something
Yeah.
that you need a writer for, I'd be interested in, because I just assumed that the character was fully booked up for the next 10 years." And he said, like, "Hey, funny you should mention it. We are actually right at this moment, making plans for what the next Darkwing Duck #1 is going to be. Would you like to write the entire series?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely." Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I will take that over a one shot.
So when you slid into the DMs, did you put it in there, Emmy Award nominee Daniel?
No, I just assume everyone knows. I just assume everybody is, as
It,
obsessed with
it
my
is a
own
good way to
website as I
start a
am.
sentence off. It's a very good way to start off, just
Well,
throw
here's
that
what
in
I'll
there.
say. Emmy Award winner, probably even better. I
Yeah,
could
I
I
mean,
could maybe go with Emmy Award losing writer Daniel Kibblesmith.
yeah, I wouldn't don't do the losing one.
No,
Just the,
it's
the nominee thing is. Do you have like 5 Emmy Award
I've been
nominations? Is that correct?
nominated 5 times. Yeah, I've been nominated 5 times for working at the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. So I also write television, I write comedy, and more recently I've done a lot of stuff for Netflix animation. I worked on a show called Inside Job on Netflix
Mhm.
animation that very, very proud of.
Yeah.
And also writing for an upcoming show on Netflix animation that's going to be out probably sometime in 2026.
Nice.
So yeah, I just, comics and TV and cartoons, just this world that I grew up obsessed with, obviously, and just have been, scratching at the door my entire life. It's so exciting that it's finally something I'm doing professionally.
So you just mentioned comics, TV, and cartoons. If you had to pick one, where does your heart lie?
Oh, that's tough. I think that my favorite, here's how I'll answer that. My favorite kind of scripting is comic
Mhm.
scripting.
Okay.
If I could write just comics and have, as full a career as I do now, if we read and sold comics in America the way that they do with those duck comics in Italy, I love comic scripting because I just think there's something really, if the possibilities are so endless with that kind of storytelling, the way that you can manipulate the images and the passage of time and all of these different tools at your disposal, compared to television, which is fairly limited.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, it's a lot of like mid-budget, even animation, it's a lot of like pretty standard, your story is told in quasi real time. It's a lot of like dialogue spoken out loud. With comics, you can jump 1,000 years between panels. You can do like a long vertical strip of imagery and then go to like a horizontal landscape immediately afterwards. You can have long periods without dialogue. The way you can have inner monologue, captions, thought balloons. Like comic scripting is just the most fun I
Yeah.
have writing by a lot.
Nice. Well, you mentioned the limitations, and this is a Disney property, obviously. Do you have limitations on where you can go with this character? I mean, do you have to run if you introduce new characters or stuff like that? Do you have to kind of stay within that box of Disney?
It's not as restrictive as I thought it would be going in, and anything that they've asked me to do so far has been very understandable. And it's usually not like, it doesn't feel protective or overprotective or anything like that. It's usually like a functional thing. It's like, oh, don't use these characters because they might have their own book someday, something like that. So it's been weird. I think given the reputation of such like a big, the powerful organization, people joke about like, oh, the mouse, the mouse will
Sure.
get you. And there's lots of stuff like that, I'm sure. But in this particular project, it hasn't really come up because I'm just kind of doing the show.
Yeah.
Like the Darkwing Duck comics that we're doing right now are just designed to feel as much like individual episodes of the show as possible.
Sure.
So I don't have a lot of desire to go beyond that at this point
Yeah.
because I'm just so excited about writing something that, to me, like every issue of this is like my audition to write for the show. Like
Nice.
I want these to feel like lost episodes of the Darkwing Duck show from like,
Yeah.
1991, 1992. So I'm not like, oh, let's put Tailspin in it, because I'm not thinking that way yet. I'm still excited about like Liquidator and Bushroot, So there's nothing where Disney has been like, oh, you can't do that.
So you're not like trying to reinvent the wheel with this Darkwing Duck. I mean, the pattern's been there, the characters have been there, they're iconic, they have their own story. You're just adding to that, correct?
That's it. It's our approach is so back to basics because I read every Darkwing Duck comic I could
Mhm.
find, and a lot of that stuff is out of print. I was able to get a lot of it at the library, which I was really, really excited about. And Fantagraphics is putting out these big chunky hardcovers of like Disney Afternoon,
Yeah.
the comics that were published in the old like Disney Adventures magazine and stuff. So I was able to find, like without scans, without piracy. I worked really, really hard to find these and read them the way that they were intended. And they're great. There's been so many good Darkwing Duck comics over the years, but what I found is that those creators were really taking advantage of the freedom of doing a Darkwing Duck comic book. So their stories are like more serialized, more, in the vein of like a superhero comic that, comes out once a month and has cliffhangers and stuff like that. So once I realized that had been done, that really freed me up to do what I kind of wanted to do anyway, which is just every issue is an episode of the show. Sure. Like no two-parters, like no real serialization. If you miss number 3, you can pick up number 4, no problem. Every issue of our Darkwing Duck series is formatted like an episode of the TV show, where it's just a new story, beginning, middle, and end, classic villain, scheme, caper, complications from Goslin and Launchpads.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see, like, because he's a superhero character, but he's not a superhero character who originates in comics. So it was really cool to see people try to figure out how to turn him into a comic book character. And now I'm trying to kind of turn him back into a, weekday afternoon cartoon character who happens to be in a comic book.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and pivot away from Darkwing Duck, because I want to get to that thing that we might have in common. So you have a podcast, correct?
No, I don't. I'm just on a lot of podcasts. I don't have my own. Yeah.
Were you talking about Darkman?
Yes, I was on a podcast where I talked about the movie Darkman. Yeah, love Darkman. Another pulpy superhero with a fedora. Oh my god! What's the story?
This is my Halloween costume. I got this mask at a Comic-Con a few years ago, and but I have worn this every year, and sometimes I wear it when I'm driving on the show.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, but, you see people like putting you on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But that's one of my favorite movies, man.
It's really great.
Oh man, Sam Raimi really did an amazing job. And just loved all the characters. Liam Neeson, obviously, doing this thing and stuff. And but yeah, I
wild Elfman score.
Yeah. So, did you have a pitch to relaunch it?
Yeah, I had kind of a loose pitch, which was because I knew that I didn't really want to do a lot of serialization. I wanted it to feel like individual stories, but I also wanted it to have some kind of connective tissue, sort of as a reward to people who buy all of them, to people who come to the shop every week and pick it up and, read it, hopefully with their kid when they get home.
Yeah.
So loosely, the story is about Darkwing Duck writing his autobiography. Mm-hmm. He's writing this like highly fictionalized, like very exaggerated, very embellished autobiography that he's reading to Goslin as a bedtime story, largely against her will. And the realization he has as he's writing and reading his own biography is that he doesn't really have, at this point in Darkwing's career, he feels like he doesn't have an archenemy. There's no Joker to his Batman. There's no Moriarty to his Sherlock Holmes. So he says, how can I tell my legend if I haven't been defined by my great archenemy yet? Yeah. So our stories are very loosely serialized around the idea that every time Darkwing fights one of these villains, it's not quite Darkwing Duck year one. It's more like Untold Tales of Darkwing Duck. That it's like early enough in his crime fighting career that he's still kind of auditioning for who his arch enemy is going to be. And, I don't want to spoil anything, but like anybody who loves Darkwing Duck knows that he does end up like having like a proper, let's just say counterpart.
Exactly. Yeah. Very cool. Well, Daniel, we're going to wrap it up. I don't want to keep you too long. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it comes out February 12th.
Comes out in February, yep.
Yeah, subject to change. We all know how Diamond works, stuff like that. So everyone who's watching, please go to your local LCS, add it to your pull list, let them know you want it. There is a potential Emmy Award winner who's writing it.
You never know, man. You never know.
You gotta do me a favor, man. When you do get that award, and I know you're gonna I want you to come back on the show and show it off, okay?
If I ever have an Emmy in my hands, I will come back on the show and I will hold it up like a literal trophy.
That'd be great, man. Well, hey, Daniel, is there anything you want to say before we go?
Just thank you. I'm so excited about it. Thank everybody in advance for supporting it. And if you see this on the sooner side, I also have a couple holiday specials out. One of them also from Dynamite. There's the Powerpuff Girls. I believe it's called the Winter Snowdown Showdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a story in Marvel Holiday Tales to Astonish as well.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're stuffing any stockings last minute, or if it's January 8th and you think they might still have one on the shelf, run to your comic book store.
There you go. All right, Daniel, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to live your best life. You know what to do. We'll see you next time. Bye.